Welcome to the File Forms Business Compliance Podcast, where we help business owners and their professional advisors stay on track and aware of all their compliance needs while running a business in the United States. I'm your host, Frank Tuminello, CEO and co-founder of File Forms, an industry-leading government-approved software compliance platform used by thousands of businesses and their professional service providers nationwide. Thank you for joining, and let's get started with this week's episode. Welcome to this week's episode of the File Forms Business Compliance Podcast. It's another exciting week in the world of business compliance. On this week's episode, we share a recent discussion where we sit down with Christine Tellian, CEO and co-founder of UENI, to discuss small businesses' needs when it comes to compliance and establishing a digital presence through building a website. Christine comes from a highly credentialed background with degrees from Harvard undergrad, the London School of Economics, and Harvard Business School. Initially starting her career in the energy industry, working for large corporations, she eventually gave in to her passion for entrepreneurship and helping small businesses by starting UENI. UENI works with hundreds of thousands of small businesses around the globe and is based in London. Their mission is to help newly formed and established businesses build a digital presence and grow their customer base through gaining customers online. FileForms recently partnered with UENI to serve its community of businesses in need of compliance services, and we are excited to work towards serving their communities of valued clients through their BOI reporting and CTA compliance journey. As a reminder, join us on May 8th at 3 p.m. where FileForms will be hosting a webinar dedicated to small businesses that are in need of a BOI reporting solution this filing season. Thank you so much for joining, and let's jump right in. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great week, and welcome to this week's episode of the FileForms Business Compliance Podcast. My name is Frank Tuminello. Thanks for listening in. Today, we're thrilled to have Christine Tellian on our episode. Christine has built a business from the ground up and has a very impressive background. I won't steal too much of her thunder, but Christine, welcome.
Hey, nice to be here.
So Christine, UENI is a business that, FileForms is now partnered with. We're thrilled for a successful partnership ahead. And, we'd love to just, hear a little on, as we get started here on the business and, how you work with small businesses. So maybe if you could just start us off with a quick background on yourself and then UENI, your platform.
Yeah, sure. Really great to be here, and we're super excited to be partnering with you guys. So I'll give you a little bit of context why UENI started. There are 33 million small businesses in the U.S., and the staggering fact is that 2 out of 3 of them either don't have a website or don't like the one that they do have. And there are 5 million new businesses created every year. So there's a tremendous need and a tremendous kind of audience here of small business customers that need a website and an online presence. At the same time, that audience is not being served very well. I mean, we work with customers, with businesses that are sole proprietors, solo entrepreneurs, and micro businesses. So think of the sub 5 employee kind of size of business. And the solutions available to them are either do-it-yourself website builders, so great tech platforms like Wix and GoDaddy, but the vast majority of those small businesses don't actually successfully launch their DIY website. Why? Because those platforms have become quite complicated. And, the tech aside, you need to know quite a lot to get the job done. You need to know copywriting and SEO and information architecture, UX, all these things that a small business is not just equipped to do. So DIY isn't really the solution, and so, okay, I'm going to go get somebody to do it for me. But traditionally, web developers, agencies, and so on, they charge a lot upfront. And then you're still left with this problem of, okay, how do I keep my website, my online presence going? So arrives kind of, us 10 years ago, seeing this market and that was really the problematic in front of us. And we set out to create UENI. Basically what we do is, we'll build any small business, a fully functional website in 7 days for under $200. And our solution was really born out of the fact that micro businesses want an expert to build their website, but they have modest budget and they want human support on an ongoing basis. So for us, the challenge was, how can we create a technical solution that is actually a delivered solution, while scaling service? Because to deliver, a professional website at this kind of price point, is a big challenge. And that's really what we've been working on for a decade.
That's amazing. And just out of curiosity, how many businesses do you work with today?
Yeah, we've helped over 700,000 small businesses get online since we started. So, and we're only scratching the surface with all the new businesses starting every year.
Yeah, certainly. And were you always in this line of work, or kind of can you speak to what life was like before UENI? How did you get into this business?
Yeah, I had a very different career before. I was in the energy industry for about 10 years. Most immediately before this, I was working for a big energy company, but I did get the experience of working on some very entrepreneurial projects. And that made it clear to me that I could do this. I was kind of relentless enough and, kind of had the stomach for it. So yeah, a big career shift, 10 years ago, but, for me, it was absolutely the right thing to do.
I that definitely resonates with me, kind of working in a very corporate role for many, many years, and then starting a business from the ground up is certainly a pivot, but I think it's very gratifying, and the opportunity to work with many, many businesses is great. It's amazing you've been able to build such significant scale, and 700,000 businesses served is tremendous. All those entrepreneurs, helping them through critical stages is super important. Do you find that the fact that you are an entrepreneur yourself helped you relate to other entrepreneurs that you serve daily?
Entirely. Yeah, it's a really good point. I think, my co-founder and I we're business people. We're not engineers. So we had to look at the problem from a results point of view rather than from, I'm going to architect something very elaborate and beautiful technically. We thought about, like, what is the experience for the customer? And I think that was, if you think about what the market is, big companies like Google, Facebook, and then the website builders, they have built amazing tech, but it has always been platforms that are essentially self-service. So who gets left behind? It's the micro businesses. It's the small business owners who don't have the time and to invest, to learn, to use the tools. And so, that really was that was the problem that was in front of us. How do you help these small business owners that tech is supposed to enable, but actually are being left behind? So I could really relate, as being a non-technical person, to that, being in that position. And I thought, well, certainly there's a better way.
Definitely. And given that you started the business from the ground up, I mean, can you just kind of speak to some of the challenges, early days, and how difficult or maybe easy it was to kind of get the business to where it is today? Just kind of those initial phases. Obviously, FileForms helps businesses stay compliant at each phase of their business. Though, would love to just kind of understand your perspective as you started UENI and have grown it to where it is today.
Not easy. Absolutely not easy. And, it's been an absolute adventure. at the beginning, I think that one thing to remember, and I think this is true for any entrepreneur, the problem you choose to solve and the market you choose to tackle determines a lot of the experience you're going to have and how difficult, how large the opportunity, how much impact you're going to have. And I think we chose a pretty hard problem. I mean, it's like the big tech companies basically said, we don't do service. And we said, okay, we're going to build a technical solution that scales service, while still being, a competitive business. And so I think that was probably the first, and that's remained kind of the biggest challenge. Like we set out to solve a really hard problem. And then I think beyond that, it's like, how are we going to, what's going to be our model? How are we going to effectively do this? So 10 years, you can imagine we've had some iterations. And UENI V1 was actually a marketplace. It was like an app, two-sided marketplace where consumers could look for the cheapest, nearest, best rated, whatever, local service. We were focused really on local service businesses at the time. And that was hard because, if you don't have kind of endless marketing money, building a two-sided platform is challenging, especially that demand gen is really hard. But what we discovered was some very efficient ways to help digitize the businesses. So working on the supply side. So we also learned from the Yelp model where they really focused on the supply. So the business side and kind of working to digitize them. So that was kind of our first pivot. And then along the way, there have been a lot. I mean, we were working on a freemium basis for some time because we really, our mission always has been, we want to digitize millions of small businesses. So we wanted to give everybody access. And doing that in a way was really great because it pushed us to how could we be absolutely as efficient as we possibly could be? Because, if you're offering the base product for free, you have to be. And I'll tell you, this was pre-COVID, at our peak when we were in freemium, and we were quite international, really focused on a lot of markets. We were building 3,000 websites a day.
Wow.
And it was a bit of a crazy time, but it allowed us to learn a lot. But at the same time, we learned from the freemium model that, people, it's always the perception of the value of a product if it's free changes, right? And so we saw that the customers weren't as engaged. So we decided to say, okay, look, we want everybody to have access, but we're going to create a small barrier here. And so it's pay to access now. But as I said, you get a beautiful website for under $200. Virtually every small business can afford this. And we said, but look, we want this to be risk-free for everybody. So, if you're not happy within the first month, you get your money back, no problem. So we went through kind of an evolution here. And I think that's, but it's tough in the doing, right? Like when you're going through it, it's tumultuous. But the one thing I'll say is that I think maybe the hardest thing at the beginning is if you're trying to do something different, it's about that balance between maintaining your conviction in what you're trying to do and adjusting to data you get, feedback from the market, other valued opinions, and adjusting your path accordingly. I think that's maybe the single biggest thing, particularly at that heady beginning of a business. And, it's interesting. We did maintain conviction, kind of being an outlier in the market, offering this scaled service, because, there are a handful of agencies globally that will build more than 1,000 websites in a month. I mean, it's really a very, very, very small group. But we're committed to it. And I think that conviction has proven correct and a bit prescient. I mean, last week, GoDaddy inked a deal with Upwork, for the Upwork freelancers to basically help with fulfillment of building websites on the GoDaddy platform. So it is exactly the point. I mean, the small business needs a delivered solution because they struggle to do it themselves for a variety of reasons, right? So I think those are some of the things I think about as, when I look back at, early times and what the challenges were.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me think, given you have such a relatable, experience with your clients that you serve, are typically the businesses that you're serving startups or newly formed businesses, or are they more so established businesses that might have just been too preoccupied to ever really create a digital presence online?
Yeah, it's a fair mix. So we have about a little bit less than half, 45% of our customers self-identify as new. So just started to about 1 year old. Another 30% are in this 2 to 5 year mark. And then the balance, 25% are older than 5 years. Now, part of that is because, there is this mix because you do have those people who never had an online presence, but more than 40% of our customers come to us with a pre-existing website. So they have had some experience and they need a revamp. This is the fact. Now, as far as some of the other kind of key things about our customers, we serve over 1,000 categories of business. So it is really kind of the long tail. About 2/3 are local business. And then we have, 25% that are e-commerce. With, post 2020, e-commerce kind of really grew, and where our heritage was in service sector, we really worked to accommodate this important segment. And then the balance are like informational sites, nonprofit, portfolio, and so on. But we really run the gamut. But a lot of the professional services, accountants, notaries, tax advisors, in addition to other kind of local service businesses, are kind of our bread and butter.
Well, I can speak firsthand, growing a business from the ground up as a startup. There's just so much to do, everything between building a website to staying compliant to, filing, licenses to do businesses in specific states. So I think having, vendors that you can rely on who provide a high value service for a reasonable price is super important, and just having the ability to relate. We've worked with vendors that only work with huge businesses and they struggle to relate to us, and then we've worked with other vendors that don't have the expertise in our specific industry, because obviously our business is built around a new law. So I think having that very worldly perspective, being able to relate to the folks who just aren't tech enabled and are looking to become tech enabled, or are just starting out and need to learn every component about their business, especially bringing it online, is I think a critical piece and characteristic of your business that has probably really helped you scale to where you've gotten in such a short amount of time. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'd love to just know, over the course of the COVID pandemic, and everyone being home and on their computers and reading the news and trying to stay up to speed on where the world is heading. I mean, did you experience a pretty significant lift in folks looking to pivot their businesses online, given the nature of everyone being in lockdown?
To some extent, it was a mixed bag because you had like countervailing winds here. So definitely like e-commerce, right, went nuts. But local service businesses, right? They had to think about, what are we going to do? Maybe home delivery, how we could organize kind of for them through their website, kind of delivery at the door, curbside delivery. Those became, new features that we had to consider. So, but a lot of businesses struggled. I mean, it really wasn't a boon, right? A lot of them had to shutter, and the amount of closures during that period was staggering for service sector businesses. But you did see kind of the rise of categories like life coaches, business consultants, that really could operate virtually anywhere. So, it was a mix, and part of our responsibility was also, how could we help our businesses, because a lot of them were really struggling. And so, we put a pause on subscription fees for a while. We worked with them to help them get through it, because, Amazon did amazing, but, every mom and pop and solo entrepreneur wasn't doing amazing.
Yep. And I love how it seems you do right by your businesses. You can, because you have that relatable experience, you understand kind of the hardship that they're going through.
Well, look, I mean, you don't choose this customer and then try to, pull a fast one, right? Like the whole mission about the enterprise is always about this demographic and doing right by them. Yeah.
That's awesome. And what kind of impact have you been able to see serving these customers? Maybe either the startups or the legacy businesses who've never had a website before. Can you kind of just speak to any high level statistics on sales growth or customer growth or any kind of key performance indicators that you all like to hang your hats on as wow, we drove that impact at UENI?
Yeah. I mean, we could always put numbers behind it. I always caution that because we cover so many categories in so many geographies, and anyone that does digital marketing that doesn't honestly say, hey, this all depends on your situation, how competitive your industry is, how concentrated your market is, right? Like a lot of that depends on the very particular factors. So, we have all kinds of case studies, but I always caution that with, hey, let's be real here. Everybody's situation will be different. I will say that there are a few things that we can generalize. The first thing is, the biggest, I think, impact on the businesses is that it sets them on a good path. You wouldn't imagine they go through the process. They sign up for our service. They fill out a form. And in 7 days, they have a website that's delivered to them on a call. You've paid $200 and you have a professional website for you. That's a very disruptive experience for a lot of our business owners because they go from frustration and fears that's a kind of a previous experience, or fear of the unknown to something that is like a little bit magic. So the word we often hear from our customers is, I feel empowered. And to think that like a website would empower them, but that's how they feel because, things that otherwise were closed to them. How would I ever access this? How would I ever do digital marketing? Now they kind of have an avenue to do it. They see how things are possible. So I think that's the biggest thing, right? Then there's the commercial results. And, what I would say is this: customers that get stuck in, they share their website, they work with one of our growth advisors, on our growth plan, which is a, very affordable digital marketing plan we offer. Our team will write 2,000 words of content for them every month. Like if you go to the growth meetings with our advisor every month and you request that service, which is included, you get results, right? The ranking happens, the leads happen, the appointments happen, and the sales happen. They just do. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. And so I think that, it's not that UENI is some magic, you take a magic pill or something. It's not that. It's a path and kind of a set of accessible tools and a really good user experience where they can get there. And so we enable all those kinds of things. You've never done email marketing, we'll do it with you. Give them tools where like anybody who just met with a client can, with 2 clicks, send them, a little notification on their mobile to leave a Google review for the business, right? And so we put for our business owners, like in your first month, the 10 5-star review challenge. Everybody can do it. You're meeting with clients. Everybody can do this. And it's a transformational thing to go from I'm invisible to I have 5-star Google reviews, right? I'm real. When people Google my business name, that's, that's what they see. And, these businesses are coming to us. Yeah, they're coming to us to increase their leads and their bookings and their sales. But I think even above that, because we always ask them, like, what is your objective when you come to us? It's about, I want to look professional online. And very often, they don't have a brand identity. It's just not something they've done yet, right? Many of them don't have a logo. We create that for them. So it's a process, but that's what they come out of it with in a very short amount of time. So, on our website, we have all kinds of case studies and stuff like this, but I always kind of try to stay away from that because every case is different. But obviously, we put them on a good path to start getting good results.
That's amazing.
I mean, I will say, like, there are some cases that stand out, right? So, I love the bakery, who, they started with us in COVID, and then 2 years later, they were selling only online. And then 2 years later, they sent us pictures of their storefront, right? So like, this is the thing. Or this morning, I don't know, I was just on LinkedIn and, one of our customers that had pinged me, she had connected with me. I saw she was on, Good Morning Chicago, right? Talking about her coffee business. So this is, those are the, very gratifying moments. And that's really why we do it.
That's fantastic. So you've seen actually businesses go from digital only to brick and mortar.
Totally.
And then vice versa.
Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely.
Very, very interesting. And I'm sure after you serve these clients and they have such a terrific experience and see the results of the hard work of you and your team, do they naturally look to ask you for other things that could potentially, continue to propel their results? And if so, what exactly are those things?
Yes. And sometimes we ask them. I mean, we do actually, as a matter of course, ask them because we want to understand kind of how we can help. Our idea has always been, how can you and I be a trusted partner? So we start with these elements, website, digital marketing, but what are the other building blocks to help them with their business? And they tell us consistently marketing. So marketing has been a big thing that we do, but also tax, legal, accounting advice, financing. So how to help find grants and loans, point of sale devices, business insurance, bank accounts. Those are all things that they say, hey, I would need help with. And when I was just reading about obviously the new legislation on the compliance side. For me, that's why I reached out to you, Frank, because I thought this is possibly a gap, right? It's it's like an unknown for a lot of our customers, that they are not, they don't have the time to be proactively thinking about where are my compliance gaps. And so if we can, that's obviously not our expertise, but if we can partner with experts in this area, as we do in the other areas kind of I mentioned, and deliver kind of some curated solutions to education and service to our customers, that's a huge value add.
Certainly. And I suspect also social media, for example, there could be, needs there. I actually found it interesting. I took the time over the weekend to look at FinCENS, who's the regulator of this new law, the Corporate Transparency Act. I took the time to look at their website and their social media platforms. They might need some digital help because they actually only have, I believe it's 14,000 total followers across LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So, as you think about 33 million businesses, probably more than that, needing to file this new BOI report, you got to think how are these businesses gonna find out about FinCEN? It's clearly not something they're going to be looking for. But it's kind of a head scratcher, and I just thought that was a really interesting statistic.
Why? Totally. I mean, why when they go to file or through their filing agent, why aren't they getting SMSs letting them know? I mean, everybody reads an SMS, right? It is the single most read channel. So, why aren't they not receiving that as an auto update? Because they need it. So you very kindly, Frank, offered to do a bit of education to our customers, and I think it's great, because I think a lot of people will be in the dark otherwise.
Definitely. I guess as obviously UENI is a global organization. Any trends that you've been able to evaluate kind of over the various geographies? I know you have a large presence that you're serving in the United States, but any kind of takeaways from either the digital needs that folks need or hardships that business owners face in the different geographies that you serve?
That's an interesting one. The businesses and what they, the kind of the channels they use are very different across the different geographies. Today, we're mostly focused on the US and the UK, Canada to some extent, and there, I think, as we're building sites and doing digital marketing, I think it's more around the kind of content, and then also making sure that the content is true to that business category. So that's where we put a lot of time and attention. How do a notary or an accountant in the UK versus in the US will need different things, right? So I think that's where we put a lot of attention on our side.
And you mentioned working with a lot of these professional services firms. I must ask, how many professional services firms would you estimate you've worked with over the years?
Well, professional services is a huge category. So, I mean, there it's like going to be tens of thousands, for sure. I think in the, yeah, for sure. And we really run the gamut. I think some of the biggest on the professional services side, categories that we serve are around, the business consultants, the tax advisors, accountants, notaries, coaches. Those are the big ones for us.
Yeah, and obviously, historically, those businesses have been, more so labor-intensive businesses, kind of manual processes. Obviously, it's a hands-on service to do taxes. There's kind of, very few opportunities where it's very rinse and repeat. I think TurboTax provides a great product. We've always liked Intuit's products, but I imagine many of those folks are really establishing their initial digital presence by using your services. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And, but we have a very healthy group of customers that are looking for the revamp, the redesign, because, every 18 months to 2 years, you need to reevaluate kind of what is your messaging, what is your service offering, and a lot of platforms also need updates, technical updates. And then, are you keeping your SEO fresh? So it really is a healthy mix of people who are coming, kind of the uninitiated, but also looking for a revamp.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then serving businesses in the U.S., the U.K., Canada. It's interesting because the new law in the U.S., which is the Corporate Transparency Act and the need to report beneficial ownership information. That level of reporting is something that certainly has existed in Canada for a few years. Certainly has existed in the UK. Would you say UBO or BOI reporting in the UK is something that's pretty well known, given that it's something that's been in existence for some time?
Ooh. I don't think I would comment on that one. I would defer to you on this, Frank, on the compliance side.
Fair enough. We've always, heard from, the folks who have helped pass this legislation of the Corporate Transparency Act that, it's really the fact that, the U.S. has never had these reporting standards before, which has led to unfortunate financial criminals using the U.S. as a safe haven to hide assets, use these shell companies that are basically anonymous to shield their assets from reporting to their foreign governments or the U.S. government. So we've worked with quite a few businesses that are internationally based, though have an operating presence in the United States. Thus, they need to now comply with the new law in the United States, which is beneficial ownership information reporting. And it's been great to actually speak to people and have them understand that this is a real thing. This is something that exists. It's part of running a business, and specifically the family offices or the large investment funds that do have a global presence similar to you and I. It's nice that they have the perspective, the experience, and kind of the processes in place and the data handy to disclose their BOI information now in the U.S. Because they've just done it for many, many years. So it kind of parlays us nicely into the question that I always scratch my head on is like, do you think most of the clients that you're working with are aware of all of their compliance needs, or are they just so busy kind of building their business from the ground up or looking to revamp their business that they might overlook potential compliance requirements that could have some pretty significant liability?
I think that's a likelihood. I mean, unless they're working with an accountant who's going to, ensure that they're aware. I think it's very unlikely that on their own, right? And I mean, does that resonate with your experience?
Certainly. I get this question pretty much daily, where it's like, Frank, if we didn't connect, how would we have ever heard about the Corporate Transparency Act or the beneficial ownership information report that's required by the end of the year? I hate to say it, I don't have a great answer because, I just don't know. We are, here at File Forms, we're tax nerds, we're legal professionals, we're financial services, experienced folks. And we've been following this law since it's passed in 2021 and even before that when it was getting drafted into law. So we've always had an eye on this regulation, and we obviously built a business around it before the law got passed in 2021. It didn't go into effect until January 1st, 2024 of this year. So there was kind of a period there where we believe the U.S. government could have certainly been creating more awareness around the law, and it seems they did as much as they could do, presumably. Though there still is a huge gap. But
like the registered agent, these incorporation companies, they're not disseminating the information to their clients, and
I think they're doing the best they can.
Okay.
We found that a lot of registered agent businesses and corporate services firms are a little bit less digitally oriented than one might assume. Perhaps they could be good customers of you all at some point. But I think a lot of these businesses are local businesses that, have existed for decades in their communities and, very hands-on, very consultative, but just haven't pivoted into the digital age, but always looking to do right by their clients. So in that light, I believe they listen to the new laws and they react and they want to do right by their clients, but might just not have that team of either website designers or content creators or developers to build a user experience that's scalable, that could serve. So I think that's where FileForms is able to fill a void because
for sure.
we are
partner
a
with them
company. Exactly. And we want to serve them not just in BOI, but in any other lines of business that they have, because we have an onshore development team that's highly sophisticated, that's worked at large national businesses in the past, and we believe that we're able to take our BOI product and pivot it into serving the partners that we've created in the short amount of time that we've been in business, but we've been able to scale quite significantly with now over 300 partners. And I think we want to assure that compliance is top of mind. It's so unfortunate when fines get levied on small businesses where every dollar counts. Fines are significant when it comes to federal and state compliance. I can attest to that firsthand. I've started many businesses over the course of my lifetime, and I've certainly forgotten to file my annual report before. In the state of Florida, I believe the fine's $415 if you forget to file your annual report, which honestly I think they're coming due pretty soon. So that's obviously a big chunk of change. It's really punishing.
And the penalties for not filing with FinCEN, the BOI, they're staggering.
It's actually $591 per day. Per day, per entity too. So if you have a business that might, have an operating business that exists under an LLC, but then maybe a separate LLC that owns the piece of real estate that your business operates in, now you have two fines of $591 a day accruing each day until you file this report. So it makes you think, wow, businesses are going to probably be blindsided by these fines. And it's interesting as well because the businesses starting in 2024 and beyond, they only have 90 days to file this report. So the businesses formed in January of this year are potentially well into those penalties and that might have accrued over the course of April, depending on when they started. So that's why it's so important, we feel, to kind of use platforms like podcasts and partners like you and I to really try to help as many business communities as we can, large business communities, to really get the word out. And, if they choose to do business with FileForms and filing their forms, that's fantastic. But at least we did our service as a mission-driven organization similar to you all to spread the education at a minimum, because like we said, FinCEN's just not well known amongst small business communities.
No. Yeah. And I mean, if you think about, I remember so well the stats during COVID, the amount of businesses that had less than 30 or 60 days of cash on hand. And then just the stats in the US, right? Something like, maybe I'm misremembering, but it's something like 40% of, individuals cannot afford a, $500 emergency. So, I mean, these are our sole proprietors, right? Like they're not outside of these statistics. So I think that this could constitute a real emergency for them if they were caught on the wrong side of it. So I think it's urgent that all the communities that can learn about it do. So glad we're doing that session next week, Frank.
Yeah. I wanted to highlight that before we wrap up here.
For sure.
So you and I and FileForms will be hosting a webinar on May 8th at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And we welcome folks to join. I'll be presenting and showing glimpses of our product and how we can help everyone, entrepreneurs to establish businesses that need to file their BOI reports by the end of the year. FileForms provides a service to ultimately file their BOI report in 10 minutes or less. And saves hours of time and provides peace of mind, because this new regulation is complex. It has a bunch of defined terms. If you're not a legal or tax nerd, the defined terms might come off as somewhat intimidating. Obviously, the fines are very significant. So we want to instill the necessary knowledge, education that we've established and distilled into very easy to consume formats, such as a digital experience on our website to serve the masses in a scalable way, in a digital way. So doing that with digital players that are highly established like you and I is excellent to partner, and we're very excited for that event coming up and just our partnership overall. So please do tune in on May 8th. We'd love for you to participate, and we'll do some Q&A as well. So obviously here on a podcast we can't necessarily solicit questions, but we want to get those answers into the right hands and assure that folks have strong peace of mind, confidence, and really can just get this BOI report off their to-do list. We can speak firsthand to the fact that any given day, business owners have a laundry list of to-dos, and BOI is just another thing on that list. So we want to ensure that we can help all the business owners out there cross BOI off their to-do list and get back to running and scaling their businesses. So
that's amazing, and I think the fact that we're very like-minded in the kind of offering a service and an efficient, done-for-you kind of experience. That's why I think it's great. So really great fit. Excited to have this for our audience next week.
Excellent. Christine, any remarks or closing statements before we call it a day here?
I guess the only thing I'd say is that for your audience, maybe there are some organizations out there that also work with a small business audience. And if anybody is keen to learn more about UENI and maybe bringing it to your members, I'd love to chat. We work with a variety of great partners that offer valuable services. And we often do kind of the, cross promotion, because there's a good fit usually when we find a partner on both sides. So you could always reach out at partners@ueni.com. And I'd love to hear from them.
Excellent. Definitely encourage our listeners to reach out to Christine and her team and get into the digital age if you're not already, or get refreshed and into a nice.
Yeah, it's not that hard. It doesn't need to be scary.
Not at all. So excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Christine, thank you so much for participating on a Friday. Looking forward to our next event on May 8th. So
sounds great.
I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and thanks everyone, and tune in next week.
Thanks, Frank. Great chatting with you.